Lord, we ask that you would change our lives. God, we just sang about what it will be like on that day that we're all looking forward to. Lord, our life has a goal, and that is a beautiful picture you have given to us of that goal. But God, until then, continue to change us and work in us and do with us as you please. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Changing your life is no small task. It is not an easy thing, but it can be done, and God shows us the way. Last week we began with the Apostle Paul asking us, do you really want your life to change in a radical way for the better? Do you really want your life to change for the better in a radical way? He says then, and this is at the beginning of Romans chapter 12, he says, then I implore you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to Him. Paul says that it is an absolute and complete surrendering of yourself that kicks this whole process that God has in mind for you into place. And he says, and it begins with the body. Like Aaron said, last week was a biblical train of thought that you may have never boarded before. And if you did not catch Paul's message last week, then that may be something you want to go back and catch, because it may change your life. The way we view our bodies is where Paul says to be. We often make a mistake, a critical mistake, right at the beginning of our life of faith. Paul says nothing less than complete surrender. Here's the mistake that we often make, and I'm going to kind of come at it from an angle. It's as if we were charged with launching the Apollo 13 spacecraft, right? So we are the group in Houston that has done all the work, and the launch was successful. And in a little while, we hear from the spacecraft, Houston, we have a question up here. And we say, okay, go ahead. And they say, why is the moon way over there? Aren't we supposed to be landing on that then? We're looking out the window watching it go by. Apollo, let us look into that. We'll get back to you. And there's chatting amongst ourselves. And then we reply, well, it seems that we may have made a small error when you launched. You were off by 2 degrees in your trajectory at launch. We didn't think that was a big deal. Turns out it is. So if you have a 2-degree misfire at launch and your target is here, that doesn't seem like a whole lot to be off by 2 degrees. But as the miles and the time pass, you're going to miss your goal by 1,000 miles. If at the beginning of our life of faith, the message that we hear and accept is, what you need to do is invite God to be a part of your life. That is an incomplete message that is 2 degrees off, that over the course of your life is going to have profound repercussions. Paul would say the goal of your life is not to have Jesus as a part of it. It is to have Jesus as the center of it. All of it. You cannot be off by 2 degrees. We have ways of, we have a bumper sticker faith, and if any of you have this bumper sticker, please forgive me. Well, we say things like, I've seen 100 bumper stickers and posters and fridge magnets that say, God is my co-pilot, right? We understand the sentiment behind that, but what's underneath that is, I'm flying the plane, the plane of my life, I've got this baby flying the way that I want it. All the dials and all the pushy buttons are right where they need to be. I'm flying a nice level life. And so, okay, I hear the biblical message. God, if you want, please come in and you can sit right over there in that seat as my co-pilot. I've got everything under control, but God, come on in and take a seat right there. In fact, every once in a while, I got to go use the can. So while I'm indisposed of, if you don't touch any of the buttons or nothing, just keep the baby going level till I get back. So God, please come in, but just don't touch him. Right? If the Apostle Paul understood the spaceship or the airplane analogy, he would say, you are sitting in the wrong seat. The pilot's seat is not for you. The pilot's seat is for God. He would say, your life needs to be a complete surrender. Present your bodies as a living sacrifice. He said the goal here is that God is in the pilot's seat, and you're the one that's sitting off to the side. Then our life is on course. Right? So then that 2 degrees has been corrected, and we now have a tremendous shot of hitting the target. But here's the thing, when God takes over, he's going to start pushing the buttons and turning the dials. And you are going to freak out. Because you had this thing flying right where you thought that it needed to be flying. It was safe, it was level, and he's going to change everything. And you're like, what are you doing? It was flying perfectly. And he's like, yes, it was flying perfectly straight into that mountain that is on the other side of that cloud bank that you knew nothing about. Yes, you had it flying exactly where you wanted it, but if you stayed in control, you're going to crash this baby into the mountain. So yes, I'm going to change things. And yes, your life is going to be made better. Paul said last week at the very outset, we cannot screw this one up. If we say, God, just kind of hang out over there, don't touch nothing, glad you're on board, then everything that we say from this point on is not going to make a difference in your life. Your life will not change in the way that you want it to change if God is your co-pilot. The only shot that you have at what we're going to talk about today is if God is in the pilot's seat. So at the outset, we have to get that one right. Paul goes on to say, and this is the first slide, we're going to expand this scripture out in a little while, but Paul basically says it this way. It is about putting off the old self and putting on the new self. This is what we try to do every New Year's, isn't it? There's something that we just, it just drives us nuts about me. But I can't get over the hump, so I'm going to use this natural break in the calendar as an opportunity to attach some piece of life change to that. And when we flip that page, baby, I'm changing it. And that's going to be different. And that lasts a month or a week or a day or whatever, because changing your life is really hard. But Paul says it's about putting off your old self and putting on a new one. I said last week that the scriptural guide that I am using in this whole 5-week series is a book that Rick Warren co-authored called The Daniel Plan. And it really is a giant scriptural map for how to make these massive, beautiful, biblical changes in your life. So this is from chapter 1 of that book. Pastor Warren very wisely reads this passage from Paul, putting off your old self, and he ties it to our habits. Very insightfully, he ties this passage to our habits. And he parses this out in 4 different ways. And this was very helpful for me, and I think it will be for you as well. Our old self is really our old or our normal habitual way of living. It is our habitual way that we have always done things. And he said that this is really hard to change for 4 reasons, at least 4 reasons. And he says the first one is that you have had this habit for a very long time, and it is extremely comfortable. Whatever your habit in life is that is steering you into the mountain, because you're driving the plane, and giving this up to God, whatever that habit is really hard to get rid of because we've had it for a long time and it's comfortable. And he makes the point that a lot of these things we pick up when we're kids. Because everybody has stress in their life, and when we're kids, when we have stress in our life, we find ways to cope with it, or to cover it over, or to soothe ourselves through negative emotions that we have. And it starts when we're kids, and then we just never let go of those things. They just last into adulthood, and whatever the coping mechanism is that we had as a kid is still in place as a grown-up. So it might be that when you get stressed out, a very common one for a lot of us is when I get stressed, I eat. You know, when you get stressed, we have that food that we always go to. You know, so when we're stressed, we'll eat, maybe we shop. There's just some rush, something that just pulls us out of reality for a minute when we buy something. Maybe you binge watch old episodes of The Price is Right. I don't know. You know, I don't know what it is for you. You know, but you have something that is just, it just comes up inside of you, and you naturally do it every time life triggers it. Whatever the trigger is, you just have this is what you go to. You've had it for a long time. You might not like it, but it's comfortable and it's normal, and you've always done it. It's just too hard to stop. We've always done it. It's comfortable. He says the second thing is these things, these habits, these old habitual ways of living, they've been there for so long that we now identify with them. We mistakenly believe that they are a part of our identity. So it may be that you're like, you know what, I'm a worrier. You know, and I know that we got some of you in here. My name is Mike, and I'm a worrier. This is what I do. You know, when whatever happens in my life, I worry. This is my thing. I worry about it. The simple fact is, you are not a worrier. That is a habit that you have picked up in your life, and you have never changed away from it. You are not a worrier, but you have the habit of worrying. It may be that you're like, you know what, I can never drive by an ice cream stand, can't do it. You know, when I order a Krispy Kreme, the lights on! The car bus turned in the driveway, the lights on, the Krispy Kreme. Can't pass that. Yeah, you know? So that may be the thing that you do. It's you've adopted as part of your identity. I can't drive by an ice cream stand. I'm Mike, and I can't drive by an ice cream stand. You might be like, you know, I'm not a reader. You know, I understand that God's primary way of speaking to us is in the written word in Scripture, but I'm Mike, and I'm not a reader. I've heard this one 100 times. I understand. But when the words are up on the screen, can you read them? Right? When you're on vacation and it says Myrtle Beach, do you miss the exit? You don't. Why? Because you can read the sign. Technically, you are a reader. But you have the really bad habit of just not doing it. Right? It's not, I'm not a reader. I know. It's a really bad habit that you've mushed in as part of your identity, and it is a mistake that you are making. You are not a worrier. You are not, can't drive by the ice cream. You are not, I'm not a reader. That is not you. You are a uniquely crafted child of God who He loves very much, but you have sin in your life. Part of that is natural because you're human. Part of that is because of decisions that you are making, but you are not your habits. They are separate from you, and until you see that, you're never going to have a shot at getting rid of them. So we take these habits, these habitual ways of living, we've always done this, and we make them into a part of our identity. The third one that Warren points out is that there's always a payoff. There's the old saying that whatever gets rewarded gets repeated, right? So why do these habits kick into place? Because there's some kind of a small short-term reward. That we just choose to do that rather than take the long-term hard approach of not doing that little harmful thing anymore. It's the proverbial sugar rush that comes with every one of our habits. You know, our bodies get addicted to sugar if it's eating ice cream or drinking a Pepsi or whatever. There's that short-term, literal, physical, chemical rush that we get from doing it. And that happens in all of our habits, whether it's something that we look at, whether it's something that we eat, whether it's shopping. It actually triggers a chemical reaction inside of you and you get addicted to that. There's a little bit of a rush in it. So there's a short-term payoff that we choose to grab a hold of rather than looking at the long term. You know, unfortunately, if you're like, I've got a sugar tooth, I've never heard anybody say, I've got a vegetable tooth. I've got a veggie tooth. Oh, you poor thing. But there's a little rush that comes along with doing whatever this old habit was. And the final one that Warren points out, this is one that we all have heard, one that we all know, probably don't stop and think about it quite enough, is that we have an enemy who majors in discouraging you. That's what he does. That's why he's here. He is here to do everything he can to drive your life into the mountain. It's his purpose. The scriptures call him they call him the accuser, the deceiver. Those are the names that Satan has. He is the deceiver because he whispers in your ears, you can't change. You'll never be different. Of course you always do. Don't even bother. He is the one who accuses you. He is the one who deceives you. We all have his influence in our lives, and we need to recognize that it is often a habit that we listen. We listen. We accept those voices and those words. You know, you're never going to change. You know, you've tried this for 40 years. You're never going to do it. It's the word of Satan who majors in discouraging us. So Warren very wisely looks at what Paul says in putting off the old self as putting off our old habitual ways of doing things. And until we recognize that those are habits that you have developed that you can get rid of, and that is where we're going to be going in the next 4 weeks, until you recognize those are not you, those are your habits, you can't get rid of them, and God has a plan for how to do that. You got to recognize that, or you never will change. Or you never will change. So what we're going to be working into for the rest of this message is 4 biblical elements for lasting change. Here is what, it's leaning heavily on Jesus and the Apostle Paul. What do they say about how to incorporate lasting change into our life? And these are not short-term fixes. They're not just, go home and do this quick and it's all better. These are not short-term fixes. This is about bending your life in a scriptural, biblical direction for the rest of your life. So it is a long turn at the dog leg. It just goes on and it curves and it's going to forever. So that's what we're going after. The first one is that we need to build our life on the truth. And this comes from the lips of Jesus in the Gospel of John. He says, if you continue to obey my teaching, if you continue to insist on doing what I have said you need to do, you are truly my followers, then you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Now just take a breath and think about that word, free, for a minute. You know, we just got all bound up talking about these habits that drag us down. Doesn't freedom Isn't that a beautiful word? Doesn't that just ring in your ears with a lot of joy? If we listen to Jesus, if we do what he says, then we will know what is true. We will know what is really real, and we will begin to become free from these things that bind us and hold us down. We've talked about this in a number of different ways. Jesus was the literal one who created everything. Go back to Genesis. He's the one who created. He's the Word created. He's the one who presently sustains everything. So he's alive now, presently sustaining everything. Thereby, he's the one that knows the best. No one knows your life, no one understands the world better than Jesus. So if we listen to the one who knows everything, knows the best, if we do what he says, then we will know what is really real, what is true, and knowing that will begin to make us free. Rick Warren says something very insightful at this point in the chapter, and he says, this scripture, that if you continue to obey my teachings, you're truly my followers, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free, but then he adds to it, but first, the truth is likely to make you miserable. Because you're going to know, and you're going to come to be aware of things about yourself that you're going to be really upset about, that are going to drive you crazy. Because you're going to see yourself as you really are, that we all have sin in our life, and it's hard to look that straight in the face and be aware of it. So step one is we just need to be aware of ourselves as we really are. It's the first step in stepping towards the truth, and that's going to be hard to take at the beginning. It's going to be hard to take. But we have to do it, or we're not going to be able to change. So the very first step is that we need to build our life on what is really real, on what is true. The second is we need to begin to make wise choices. Now this can fall into any category in your life. It can be, the shape of your body, whatever, the way your body is presently. It can be about your relationships, the way they are presently, about your mind, the pathways that your mind always go down. There's a difference between wanting to be healthy in these ways and then choosing to be healthy in these ways. There's a difference, and it's a drastic difference, between wanting it and choosing to do it. We can desire to be spiritually healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, everything. We can desire health, but it's not going to make a single lick of difference in your life until that desire changes into a decision that you make. We have to choose to move in this direction. Paul says, and I will take that verse from earlier and we'll expand it out. And so this is Ephesians 4:22-24. Paul says, and he's not blowing any punches, he says, get rid of your old self, which made you live as you used to. The old self that was being destroyed by its deceitful desires. Your hearts and minds must be made completely new. And you must put on the new self, which is created in God's likeness. He just could not be more plain than that. Get rid of your old self, the old self that was destroying you by your deceitful desires. You need to get rid of that. Put on the new self that is a reflection of Christ. Aaron and I read a book 5 or 6 years ago that was talking about how hard it is to change. And they were citing a study in the medical industry, and those of you who are in the medical industry will probably go, "Cha-ching, that is my life." Doctors say we repeatedly will be as plain as we can with our patients. The lifestyle that you are living is killing you. If you do not change, you will die. Change or die is their message. And they said 99 out of 100 times people do not choose to change. They're like, we cannot say it any plainer than this. Change what you're doing or you're going to die. And they don't do it. Change is hard, but we have to make the decision to do it. Paul says you've got to decide off with the old self and on with the new. He says, and I didn't put this in the slide, but I'm going to read it. In his book, in his letter to the Romans, he writes, and this is Romans 6, verse 16, he says, don't you realize that you become a slave of whatever you choose to obey? You can be a slave to sin, which leads to death, or you can choose to obey God, which leads to life. Can Paul be any plainer than that? You become, and we know this, our habitual behavior, we become a slave to whatever we choose to obey. Got to change your choices, right? You got to choose differently. Now we're just going to pause here for 1 second, because this is heavy and this is hard, but it's something we need to say. So we're just going to pause and take a deep breath, and John over here would say we need a shot of, he calls it vitamin E, encouragement. So halfway through, if we could go to the next slide, I want to bring something else to your attention. Whoops, maybe I didn't make that slide. But as Paul writing to the Philippians, and what he writes is, now just absorb this one as a moment of encouragement. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. So yes, this is really hard. Yes, this is a difficult thing to do, but Paul writes that it is God who is working in you. The desire that you have to change, that is from God. The power that you need to change, that is from God too. So be encouraged in that God is giving you both the desire and the power to do what pleases Him, and that is to change. So God is going to see us through this. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, we're going to be on this path for the rest of our lives, but yes, this is why God has us living. He is about changing us in these ways, so He's not going to let us down. The third thing that Warren writes is that we need to adopt new ways of thinking. And he has a quote that is up here, and this is so helpful. And this is from Rick Warren, the author of the book. The way you think determines the way you feel. And the way you feel determines the way you act. If you want to change how you act, you must begin by changing the way you think. Your thoughts are the autopilot of your life. And you know that to be true if you really think about it. The way you think determines the way you feel. Out of how you feel is how you act. So if you want to change the way you act, you got to go back to the beginning and start by changing the way you think. And this Warren gets from the Apostle Paul in Romans 12:2 when he says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So we need to adopt new ways of thinking, and 2 sermons down the list. So the week after next, the whole sermon is going to be about this. So we're just going to leave it at that for now. The final thing is that we need to invite God into our living. Not as your co-pilot, not as your helper. We need to invite God into the everydayness of our living. We try to change by willpower, and we all know that that doesn't work. We just heard from Paul that if we're going to actually make these changes, it is not by willpower, it is by God's power. So we need to invite God into the center of this process, and we'll finish with this scripture. Paul writes to the Galatians, why don't you choose to be led by the Spirit and so escape the erratic compulsions of a law-dominated existence? He's like, we all know what it's like to be caught in habitual behavior. Why don't you ask the Spirit? Why don't you choose to follow the Spirit instead? So I'm going to wrap up with this statement. If you don't like where you are, okay, so in whatever category in life where you've been hearing this, and if you don't like where you are, it is your old habitual way of living that has gotten you there. If you don't like where you're at in life, it is your old way of thinking that has gotten you there. So we need to do the work of taking off the old self and putting on the new self. We need to adopt a new system of living. Begin by giving our life entirely to God. Then we need to recognize our old habitual ways of living for what they really are. Those are not me. Those are habits that I have developed. My old self, habits that I have developed. Now we need to start adopting the new way of living. And that is where we're going to pick up next week. One suggestion. So I know of myself, I do not change by simply listening to a sermon. No matter how good the preacher, I do not change by hearing a sermon. I have to take what it says in the scriptures that it's based on and go home and repeatedly work this into my bloodstream. So if you've been saying, man, this is what I need, take the sermon notes home, major on the scriptures, and every day take time and absorb these into your bloodstream. And that is actually doing the work of beginning to change. So don't just hear this, go and do it. So we'll pick up here next week. Let us pray. Lord, wow. Paul just does not mess around when he talks about our condition. You offer us such goodness and such beauty, largeness of life, fullness of purpose. God, this is what we want. Please create this in our lives. God, give us what we need to get there. And we pray this all in Jesus' name.
Please stand. As you leave today, I just encourage you to do what Mike said. Take those sermon notes home and put them somewhere where you can look up all those scriptures this week. When Paul says in Ephesians 4 to put off the old and put on the new, when Satan starts to lie to you this week, when you start to give in to the old habits again, just stop and say, no! I'm putting off the old and putting on the new. You know from Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. Just have that visual. Take off the old, put on the new. And we do that by going to the cross and letting Jesus be the pilot. So let's go to the cross as we